The deal about trafficking that you have to understand is that it's a event-driven thing. If you ever go into any big concerts, if you go to State Fair, okay, then you've met victims. If you ever go to the Hy-Vee store, you ever go to Casey's, then you've met victims. It's a terrible, terrible thing to be the victim of a sexual assault. But if you can imagine being the victim of a sexual assault 15 to 20 times a day, every day, for months, for years, and to endure all kinds of violence and brutality and a true sense of hopelessness, that's going to put you in a place that a lot of people just simply can't comprehend. Those types of things are happening every day to young girls and young women and young men across the country. And while we're sitting here right now, they're passing through our state. Well, I actually was working in law enforcement in Iowa. I was asked to do a specific investigation of a use of force allegation against a police officer here in Des Moines. And based on the investigation and the resulting report, I received an invitation from the Attorney General's Office Area Prosecutions Division to come to work for them as an investigator. So imagine yourself as a 14-year-old kid on the street, and you're a runaway. And it's getting cold, it's getting dark, you got no place to go, no place to sleep. And somebody comes up and they ask you, well, if you'll go on a date with this guy, I'll give you some food and you can sleep on the couch. Or you revert to what is referred to as survival sex. And that is, at that early age, you all of a sudden determine that the only commodity that you have to barter with is you. And the statistics say that within the first 72 hours, 1 out of 3 will be approached to be engaged in commercial sexual activity, which is either stripping or escort or massage or something like that. Of those, 75% will then become engaged in sex trafficking.
From what we've learned, there are what are called spotters, who are the good-looking young men that make that connection and build that relationship. And as soon as the girl goes with the spotter, he turns her over or sells her to the trafficker. So it doesn't take long for someone to make a lot of money just finding girls and bringing them to the traffickers. But you also look at the types of things that girls are looking for, and if it's just attention, sometimes having someone pay attention to them becomes such a draw. If they don't feel like anyone cares about them at home, or if they've had some problems with their family or their best friends, they're drawn to people who are kind to them, who seem nice to them, who flatter them. And many of the trafficking victims, in fact, we've learned that most of them call their trafficker their boyfriend or their dad or their uncle. And it's tremendously difficult to break that bond. I've been working for Chrysalis Foundation really since 1997. And our work is to help girls and women in our community succeed in life, have an education, have a job, all of the things that help support a good citizen. I had parents who both were teachers, so in my experience, most of what we did was help people, teach people, etc. So a lot of volunteer work that I got into in junior high school and college was volunteering, helping with fundraising, helping with marketing, and generally just working in the human service arena. We provide monthly educational events for the general public. We're partnering with the Des Moines Police Department, and we share what's happening in the community. We're partnering with the Office of the Iowa Attorney General on a human trafficking task force, And we're hosting an event where we're bringing in an expert in the area of human trafficking for a luncheon presentation and then a day-long workshop around how to identify victims, what are the indicators, what are the types of things that you need to know in your capacity, whether you're a law enforcement or a social service provider, etc. And we plan to continue to raise awareness around the community and around the state.
We used to watch the news every night or every morning before school and whatnot, so I felt like I kept up with what was going on in the world, but I never experienced any, like, real trouble. No, we didn't have a lot of, like, you hear about a robbery in our neighborhood and you'd be like, what? That never happens around here. What's going on?
Where does it seem like it would happen the most?
I feel like it would happen in, like, busier places. So you would think, like, bigger cities and stuff where there's just always people and people don't pay attention to what's going on around them. So it'd be pretty easy just to snag somebody. It is a shocking thing to think about. Like,
it is.
If you know the people in Des Moines, like, anybody who comes to visit, too, you just hear, like, they're the nicest people.
Yeah.
And it's such a small town. Everybody knows everybody still, kind of thing. Like, I feel like that's how Iowa is.
Right.
And even Des Moines being the capital, you would think that's how it is. So you wouldn't think things like that happen.
Des Moines is the intersection of two cross-country highways. So Interstate 35, which runs north and south from Minnesota down through Texas, and then I-80, which runs from border to border. So just knowing that and the number of truck stops that are along that way provide an easy route for traffickers to bring girls, but also provides a venue for them to sell.
Iowa has been described as the perfect hiding place. 35 and 80 touch all four borders of our country. We have one of the lowest law enforcement per capita presence in the United States. Your Iowa State Patrol right now is operating at 1964 staffing levels. And we are doing training, we're continuing to do training, but really public support, public awareness is really something that will move us forward. I promise you, if people out there are talking about this, then the system will listen.
I remember thinking, it's got to be happening here. Like, that's for sure, like, what's happening here was people are being trafficked, or they're ending up here, or they're stuck in prostitution, or they're being sold on Craigslist. And so I think it was a very slow and, like, steady sort of increased awareness. Like, we have to do something, because if you look at a map of rescue centers in the U.S., you'll notice the Midwest is severely lacking.
I remember going to Ethiopia, taking all these Drake students. We went and spent the summer there, and we lived with university students from Ethiopia, spent time there, and everybody had kind of a work site where they were going. And I was actually in a rehabilitation house of women who'd just been pulled out of sex trafficking, and they were not women; they were like young girls, I think the youngest girl I worked with was 9. That was my first introduction to sex trafficking. I never really thought about it, never really heard about it. But it broke my heart, and it changed me. Just like I'm talking about Josiah, it changed me too. And my mind was opened up to this whole issue of sex trafficking that I'd never really given, more than a thought to. But slowly that kind of transformed into hearing about sex trafficking in the United States and realizing that was an issue here. And I remember sitting with Autumn and a few other students and having conversations where it was like, man, sex trafficking is happening in the United States. That means it's happening in Iowa. I don't have to go overseas to see this or experience this, or this is not a problem happening elsewhere, but it's happening here, maybe 5 or 6 blocks from my house even.
And I think part of me was aware that I might know it's an issue, but I have no freaking clue what that means or where to go or who I even talk to, and that sort of thing. And so I think Streetlights kind of came out of that sort of confusion and uncertainty. And so I'd seen this thing done before where they actually called it listening prayer. So you would maybe start and ask a question, and then you would just listen and see if you heard anything or saw something, which sounds kind of crazy, but I don't know. I kind of have to have like the frame of mind for it. And so then I just said, okay, every other like Thursday night we're gonna meet at 7:00, and we're gonna do like listening prayer, and then we're gonna go out and just see what happens. One of like the craziest things I think we've experienced so far is that someone else who hadn't like been out with us before was like, I'm seeing this like motel, and there's like a bar in front of it, and it's called like something relax. And we're thinking, oh my gosh, what? So then I like freak out, and I'm like, no, weird. Like the first time we were in, you know, like we did this, we like heard that, and so we ended up like going out there. I think the first time we went out there was the cops were all there because someone was like pushed off the balcony on the second floor and had died. And we're thinking, there's something wrong with this place, or like something about this place that isn't great. I think I woke up to like 4 text messages and like a phone call, and someone had been like watching like the news, and there was a huge, and they called it I think a human trafficking bust. It was the largest bust in Iowa that had been done like up to date, and they did it at the Motel Relax.
All you have to do is meet one victim, and you will never think the same way. You know, and it's kind of odd because you go out and talk to people, and I hear them say, "Well, they're just prostitutes." That's not what they are. And even if they were, they don't deserve the things that happen to these girls. One of the most single, vicious individuals I've ever met in my life. A mother and her son, who just had graduated from high school, his job was to recruit girls from the high school. And he was a very attractive young man, had all the stuff, the drugs and the access and this kind of thing. They got a girl, and this girl became a good earner for them. But she wanted to leave. And so to prevent her from leaving, she ordered her son to impregnate her. She had the baby, and then the baby was held to keep her in line.
Oh my God.
You want to see your baby tonight, you make your quota. So it's that vicious, it's that cold-blooded, that cutthroat.
I had a woman approach me at my church who was like, hey, do you still do that like prostitution thing? Streetlights? Yeah, we're still doing that. She's like, oh, this is crazy. I'm a prostitute, and I actually like don't want to be anymore. I don't have any sort of inkling as to what to do, but I will meet with you, and we can talk, and we can like do whatever, and I'll be your friend, because I do know how to do that. And it's crazy because like the week before we met her, she was raped on the street. She's 46 now. She's been doing she's a prostitute for 33 years. Like that's the life she knows. Here I am on like a Friday night with a former prostitute, or like a prostitute who wants to leave prostitution. She like turns to me and is like, I just want to let you know that I actually like got rid of my client list like yesterday. I like tore it up. I got rid of it. Like thanks, for helping me. I was like, what? I haven't done anything. I've just been her friend for 2 months. And she's like, yeah, I decided that it's not the life I want to live. And so that's like a step that I can take. I remember thinking, oh my, like this is awesome. Like this is kind of like what I was like made to do,
We remember where Christians were during the Atlantic slave trade. Christians were buying and selling and using slaves, and they were on the wrong side of the issue. During the civil rights, the white churches were quiet and didn't stand with the black churches. So often Christians have, like I said, have been on the wrong side of the issue, or have been silent and not said anything, which says a lot, right? And I think that we have to stand up. We have to be people. If we really claim to be Christians and really claim to be people who follow in Jesus' footsteps, which means setting the oppressed free and breaking the chains of slavery, then we have to do something about this issue. And if we don't, then we're repeating history.
Because it's such young children that are used, and it's adults that are using these children. It's so taboo beyond any reason you would think. So people still don't like to acknowledge those taboo kind of things. People choose to ignore things, and I think if they don't have to accept that it happens and choose to ignore it rather than say they know about it, then they don't have to accept any responsibility.
Why didn't somebody ask, what is a school-age girl in the middle of the day, on a school day, doing in the middle of my Hy-Vee store looking like she just fell out of a duffel bag? Nobody asked. And that's why we are saying in our campaign to the public is, if you see something, say something. The worst that could happen is you'll be wrong. We don't care if you're wrong. We would rather you send us out on 100 wrong calls than not call us for the one that made a difference.
It's so important for us as good people to see if there's a way we can help and maybe make a step that we ordinarily wouldn't. The world is what it is, and our work is to help girls and women be safe and to navigate through the world. So those of us that think, media should change or the internet should change or whatever it might be, we just really want to help people understand that, and especially children understand that you make your own choices and you need to know right from wrong. And so my hope is that every person begins to feel that sort of respect for other people.
Sex trafficking is connected to poverty, which is connected to homelessness, which is connected to hunger. Everything is connected. So if you get involved in one area, you could be affecting so many more areas. And I think we often don't think like that. We think we compartmentalize them. If students ventured out and went downtown and went and ate a meal at the Iowa Homeless Youth Center and met homeless kids, or went and not even volunteering, but just getting involved with real people's lives, because I think knowledge is just knowledge unless it bothers you.